President Trump needed a reminder about the danger Russia poses. All he had to do was turn to his own Department of Justice. Today, a federal magistrate ordered Maria Butina, a Russian national suspected of being a covert Russian agent in this country, to be held without bail. The magistrate sided with the federal prosecutors who argued that she was at extreme flight risk, that she was going to skip out to the country. The Department of Justice painted a portrait of a character straight out of The Americans. According to court documents, Butina was in regular contact with the Russian intelligence agency, the FSB, using sex and deception to forge important political connections. Working covertly, she established back-channel lines of communication to the Kremlin and U.S. political organizations, which include the National Rifle Association, so that, quote, these lines could be used by the Russian Federation to penetrate the U.S. national decision-making apparatus to advance the agenda of the Russian Federation, so, quote. Anyway, Butina became a fixture at conservative and Republican events. The Washington Post reports that it was those contacts that landed her on the FBI's radar. For more, I'm joined by Ken Dilanian, intelligence and national security reporter for NBC News, and Mimi Rocah, former assistant U.S. attorney. Let's go to the spy game here. Ken, what do you think she was up to in the United States? It seems like a great Mata Hari story here.
It's incredible, Chris. She was an agent of influence. She's not accused of trying to get military secrets. That's why she's not charged with espionage. What she's accused of doing is trying to build a back channel to American politicians, specifically Republican politicians, through the National Rifle Association. It's really amazing. I mean, those of us who cover this case closely have known about Maria Butina for some time, but never in my wildest dreams, Chris, did I imagine that the FBI would uncover a plot this elaborate, that she was actually in touch and being handled by Russian intelligence officials. And don't forget, her main handler was a guy named Alexander Torshin, who's a Russian central banker who tried to broker a back channel between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump during the campaign. He was trying to meet with Kushner. He ended up being at dinner with Donald Trump Jr. on the sidelines of an NRA event. So this appears to be a Russian operation to infiltrate the NRA, to infiltrate Republican politicians, to essentially build influence in Washington, which is more valuable in some ways to the Russians than the secrets to the F-35, because after all, we're not going to be in a shooting war with Russia anytime soon, but there's a lot of diplomatic back and forth, as we've seen this week, and it's important for them to have allies in Congress, Chris.
Maybe there are a couple of restaurants in Washington, I will not name them, that have a history of spies hanging around in them, that's sort of the color of the game, if you will, and I think today they have the feel of it. What is this about spying, and when do you go from being an agent to being a spy, someone who's really involved with subversion, really?
Well, yeah, Chris, so Ken really, I think, hit the nail on the head in that Butina is an example of someone who, based on what we know right now, and there could be more to come, she was acting using her position here to try and assert influence on American politics, on the Republican Party in particular, as opposed to someone who would be charged with espionage. That, under the technical sense of the criminal statute, it would require someone to be taking information or something of value to the foreign power or a person who's not authorized to have it. And right now, we don't have any indication that she was doing that, although it should be said, first of all, that there could be more to come. As everyone knows, there could be superseding charges. And also that sometimes prosecutors want to charge what's more easily chargeable. They may have information, but it's classified.
By the nature of somebody spooking around like her, you'd be reporting back information as you sought more information. You'd be saying, well, here's what I heard, or here's what I found about a connection between somebody to somebody that could be useful. It just seems by the very nature of being an agent, you are reporting back information.
I mean, I think there is overlap, you're right, but the espionage statutes are very particular. They're more narrow. And it seems like what they went with here, it's not, so in other words, we're not saying that she could never be charged with an espionage statute, but for now, this is the broader statute. It seems to capture more correctly the nature of sort of what she was trying to do here. And as I was saying, they may not want to reveal other information about what she was communicating back, because that might lead to revealing classified information. So this is a safer course for them to take now.
Well, according to court records, Maria Butina had tried to broker a secret meeting between Donald Trump, the candidate, and Vladimir Putin. In July of 2015, weeks after President Trump announced his candidacy for the presidency, Butina was able to question the president about his stance on Russian sanctions. Let's watch. This is an open conversation here. Here she is questioning candidate Trump.
If you would be elected as a president, what will be your foreign politics, especially in the relationships with my country? And do you want to continue the politics of sanctions that are damaging of both economy, or you have any other ideas?
I know Putin, and I'll tell you what, we'd get along with Putin. I believe I would get along very nicely with Putin, okay? And I mean where we have the strength. I don't think you'd need the sanctions. I think that we would get along very, very well.
Well, Donald Trump wasn't the only high-profile Republican official that Butina had access to in the run-up to the election. She met with Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, former Republican Senator Rick Santorum, and former Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal. Maybe what do you make of these contacts? It looks like she was trying to do something active.
Right. So it looks like, I mean, the question really is, was she trying to generally assert influence in the Republican Party, or was she in some way connected to the influence operation with respect to the election? And, you know, I know there was some reporting about that question, that clip that you played of her asking Trump that question, that seemed very planted, if you will, and he had a very prepared answer. And so it does, you know, make one wonder, and, you know, from the prosecutor perspective, wondering means investigate. So I'm sure that if there is a connection between what she's doing, what she's done, and the attempts to influence the election per se, you know, that's when it would sort of come into Mueller territory.
Ken, do you think she was an agent there trying to get candidate Trump on the record to say he wanted to get rid of the sanctions? It looked like that's what he was ready to do. Right there.
Absolutely, Chris. Yeah, I think Mimi's got it absolutely right. This started as something separate, as an influence operation by the Russians. And by the way, we wonder how the Republican Party, which had been hardline on Russia for years, suddenly became so sympathetic to Russia. Arguably, this is one of the ways. This was a secret Russian operation backed by Russian money to influence Republican politicians, and she was part of it. But it was separate. It looks like it was separate from the Trump the Russian effort to meddle in the election, but it may have melded. Those things may have come together, and that's why Mueller is very interested in this. And by the way, there's a salacious aspect of the story, Chris. This woman is accused of using sex to try to get a job at a non-governmental organization. She was living with a Republican political operative. So just a fascinating tale all around here.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.